I didn't bring my pad.
All right. We'll call the meeting to order. Turn my microphone on. This is reconvening our May 8th meeting. Purpose of today's meeting is to discuss the budget. I guess we've had 4 weeks now to digest the county manager's recommended budget. And we're here to discuss that budget, ask questions, and I think we have it on our schedule to meet with the Board of Education at 5 p.m. And so we have 2 hours to hash through it. Commissioner Gillespie is on a work emergency. He said he would be here as quick as he could.
They're not coming at 5.
So,
They're not coming at 5.
at 5, yeah. I suggest
They may be in the hands from about the 3 o'clock suggestion because they may have noticed a recess till 5 o'clock.
No, some of the school board members couldn't make it at 3:30. Was right, Derek?
Thanks. No, yeah, not everybody, and not everybody could be here. We'd sent it out as a recommendation yesterday, and then, trying to do it all, we had realized that some will not be available until 5 o'clock. So, like the chairman had said, so.
Yeah, just couldn't make it happen quick enough, basically.
Right.
With less than a day's notice. So anyway, they're on schedule for 5. They may be here a little bit earlier, so we'll roll a little bit early. So with that being said, any questions? I'll be happy to lead off if y'all want me to, unless somebody would like to take the floor.
Go for it.
All right, I'll go, Derek. I'm going to. You've already answered these questions, but I want to do it just for purpose of public record. The questions that I had emailed you regarding our budget, we'll just run through them one by one. Let's start with some of these. My questions are referring to education, so we'll hold on those until we meet with education. Can you provide us an update with solid waste? I know that we've had some discussions in the past, and we've mentioned that all of our recycling solid waste centers are frontline. In other words, that's something that basically every member of the community visits probably at least once a week. And there's some of them that could obviously use some enhancements. I mean, I know I get, whenever the weather gets bad, they're weekly or daily, I get emails about potholes. And I know we get complaints during holiday times when the centers aren't open about trash. But I was thinking that now that the phase 3 of the landfill is completed, that hopefully solid waste financials will start to plane out, and we can start taking some of those funds and placing them into improvements, aesthetic enhancements and functional enhancements to our solid waste department. So.
Yes. And with that, Mr. Chairman, $300,000 has been placed in the solid waste budget, which will go towards, we'll prioritize those needs at the convenience center. I think solid waste is going to go and take an inventory, listing those needs in priority, and that $300,000 will go towards correcting those highest priority functional issues at the convenience
That doesn't
center.
come from our, that's not coming out
That's
of our
in
budget.
the enterprise
That's in the
fund.
enterprise fund.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Sounds good. Any questions on that?
Just make sure that hose on it because they got some serious safety issues.
Yes, sir.
Some ropes tied up for safety over there.
And with that comment, is there a solution, or who helps with that solution on
That'd be
the
Chris.
problem?
It's Chris.
Chris, that's his baby.
No, does he need to let us know what the solution is?
They'll let me know over there, baby.
Okay. Have they? What is the solution?
They just need some permanent handrails. They got ropes up for temporary handrails and some different elevations. But I'm sure Chris is aware of them. They've been calling him. But I hope when they do this assessment that they identify safety issues there. Appearance is great, but safety issues are paramount.
I'll make this comment in jest. I'm not serious, and one of the reasons is because I have several friends that are commissioners in Raven County, but it wears me out when you go to their recycling centers and they're nice. Yeah.
Right, Jackson County. Well, nice too.
Jackson's not open on Sunday, is it? They're not using much of ours, so ours is one more.
All right, one of my questions was, under special appropriations, what is ST of Franklin? I've got your answer here, but I'll let you respond.
Right. That is the state of Franklin. It's basically a 7-county partnership in the southwest region here that assists with low-income unemployed persons who are 55 years or older by training them in part-time community service assignments and assisting them in developing their skills to facilitate a transition to unsubsidized employment. I know that those volunteers, they have worked at the senior center and places like that and assisted with our county staff in that capacity.
Okay. I'm going to ask, just because I don't know, and I know this has been in our budget, I believe, every year since I've been a commissioner, and it just rolls right through. Is there a reason that it's not put in to our community funding pool? Is there a reason it's separate? Does every county in the West do that, or just us, or do you know?
I couldn't speak to if every county in the West does it. I know that this was something that, upon my first year here, it was in the budget, and we did look at it, did do some research on it, and saw where that it had, benefited county departments and benefited, again, this age group that are transitioning to unsubsidized employment. It very well, that is a topic for conversation that this board could have, and I would be more than willing to facilitate getting some representatives from the state of Franklin in here to address this board and answer any questions you might have. But there, it could be a candidate for the community funding pool.
I don't have it written down there. What's that amount off the top of your head?
$14,000.
$14,000. Gentlemen, do y'all? Ronnie, Paul, any old one?
It's been in the budget ever since I've been here, and I know for a fact that 4 counties contribute, or did. I assume they still do.
Yeah, I don't know the history on it. I know it just kind of rolls through our budget every year. I'm just questioning.
And they combined that, and part of it went through the workshop in Silver.
I think that's right.
And I don't know how. A little research wouldn't hurt on that, Derek, to find out if they're still doing it.
That may be a good thing for funding folks.
What you?
Jack Horton.
Yeah, I think he's the chairman.
Yeah, Jack's on that board.
I think he's the chairman.
Jack.
He's chairman of that board. He's chairman of the board now.
Okay.
I will research that, Mr. Chairman.
Transportation projects too. We've got a contract with them on the veterans transportation program that we did. They apparently do transportation in Swain County.
I'm just not familiar with them. Yeah, I think a quick update might be could be good to see Jack anyway.
Could be good.
Yeah. Chester and I I was going to talk about South Macon, but let's hold on that to the Board of Education's here. IT and capital for schools, recycling center. Here's one that I think is worthy of some significant discussion. Personally, as the owner of a rather large employer, I have a lot of employees, and I think it's tough on us in this recommended budget. I'm not trying to pick on you, Derek, because I know you're doing what you can within your metes and bounds, but I think it's tough on us when we're asking our county employees overall. We're giving them basically 2 hits this year. One is that we're not giving them a cost of living increase, but yet there's a lot of things in our everyday lives that are going up right now. And then number 2 is we're giving them a hit on their health insurance by asking them to give a greater contribution than what they have in the past. Now, we all understand the reasons for that, both reasons for the lack of cost of living increase and why you're having to recommend your budget as flat, Derek. But as a leader, I don't feel great about it. If I was working as a county employee right now, I wouldn't be happy about it. Well, here with basically 2 to 3 months notice, I'm finding out that all of a sudden I'm potentially going to have to be pulling another $200 a month if I stay on the same plan that I had last year out of my paycheck. When I'm making, when I worked for the county, I made $13 an hour. And if I was making that right now and then had to come up with $200, I'm going to have to make a severe decision in my life. Either I'm going to have to make some major changes just to make my day-to-day means meet, or I'm going to have to really change my plan. Well, if my family's not capable of that, if my family's healthy and doing great, that's one thing. If I've got something going on and it really concerns me, it would wear me out. So I could just see as a county employee, and we're part leaders of that as well as Derek, is how do we handle that? And I've been pondering it probably more than any other topic on in this budget. And I've got 3 thoughts on it. Number one, again, I'm just one, if all of y'all are in agreement. Number one is we can task Derek with going back through the budget again as he sees how sales tax revenues are coming in, collection rates, how expenditures are being spent, to try and find some money so that we can afford one or the other. The other idea that I had is we could potentially fund the difference in health insurance for this year, and then at least that gives our county employees a year to digest the increase that they're getting ready to have. And then, the third option is that we try and figure out how to handle a COLA increase, because that obviously wouldn't handle all of the increase of health insurance, but at least it handles a portion of it. But anyway, I don't know if any of y'all have been pondering that issue too, but it just hasn't been sitting extremely well for me, because we're in the service industry. It's not like we sell a product. We provide a service, and I think we need to take care of the assets that we have, and our assets are our county employees. And I'm proud of what we have here, and just hope we can continue to take care of them. So if y'all have any thoughts on that, I'm ready to talk about it. So.
Derek and I have had that conversation, Mr. Chairman, and very same conversation. And if you compare the insurance cost to the cost of living increase, first of all, the cost of living increase, we pretty much know what that reoccurring cost will be. Next year, we don't know. Nobody has a clue what the cost of insurance will be. So, what I was looking for a way, and Derek had some ideas on that. If you could go down, and I don't know how you could do it, but if you go down and if you could split that difference somehow. So one's reoccurring, we know, and the insurance cost. If we have another year like this year.
Yeah, I understand. We weren't expecting this year. So.
Rates aren't going to go down.
It's got to go down.
Insurance rates aren't going to go down.
No, but
they're only going to continue to go
so
down.
if we face the same problem next year, here we are again. Do we try to match it again? So do we put it in form of a policy? Is it a policy decision, or do we take it, or do we have to look at it year by year? I mean, if we don't know what the cost of insurance is going to be. We can tell you, but in our business insurance, 1, 2, 3 can tell you we don't know what our business insurance is going to be.
It's a lot of money.
Ours is all up.
We couldn't have got lucky like the town of Highlands this year, who had a $300,000 decrease, and I believe the town of Franklin's went down as well.
But Highlands, they don't subsidize the pendant coverage, right?
They do.
They do?
Yeah.
I thought they did away with that a couple of years ago.
They talked about it.
Similar policy as ours, yeah.
Did that decrease happen because both of those joined the league?
The league.
Municipalities?
Yeah.
Do we know what the cost of living would be? Derek, if you got a handle on the cost of living, do we know
cost of living increase would be about $400,000
for 2%.
If we do a 2%. But is that the true cost of living? Do we know that?
Well, it won't be there are some municipalities out there that are going with 2%. I think the Social Security Administration in 17-18 recommended 2%. The 18-19 cost of living increase for Social Security Administration, I don't think gets released until maybe the beginning of the federal fiscal year.
Is it? Let's go with 2% is 400,000.
2% is 400,000.
Would the cost of living take care of the expenses that they're going to have monthly extra? So how
Well,
much
it just
are we
depends on how you look at it. Like right now, if you have enhanced family coverage and you switch to base coverage, which I think we had there were quite a few that had family coverage and switched to on the 80/20 the enhanced level, and then switched to that base plan, they're actually saving $10 a month on health insurance. But now, like me, I was on the base family coverage before and stayed on the base family coverage, so that is about a $50 to $160 increase a month in the insurance coverage.
Your choice is to take lower coverage and lower or pay more.
Well, obviously, and I don't mean to, but obviously, yes, you can switch into the base plan and save you money on your premium costs. But of course, you're moving your exposure to a higher deductible, more out of pocket. So it's a roll of the dice either way. And I get that.
And this was a tough, and like you said, Mr. Chairman, this is the toughest decision. The insurance committee struggled with this, but looking at the parameters that we had and the renewal increases we received, again, at 24%, that was, the next closest one was 36% increase. And so that 24%, which equated to about $750,000, we were able to absorb $500,000 of that. And again, our health insurance is like an enterprise fund. It's set up like a business fund. So, it is very important that account, that fund stand on its own merit, that the revenues coming into that fund are going to support the expenditures that are occurring in that fund without subsidy, that it needs to stand on its own. And that was that was the toughest issue in this budget to deal with. Now, we have made some concessions on like the employee health clinic, for instance. We're expanding our services there. We're talking right now about opening it up to offering it to direct relatives that are not dependents but are your direct relatives, that they will be able to go. We're stepping up our disease management and trying to get those people with chronic illnesses in consulting with a disease management professional via the health department in Blue Cross Blue Shield. For the first time, we had them sit down at the table together, and they were able to discuss a plan that will involve the insurance company and our employee health clinic that takes advantage of these things like disease management and our health clinic and controlling costs through that mechanism.
All right, I'll reiterate what I said earlier because I feel like I'm beating on you, and that's not my intention, Derek. I think based upon what we were working with this year, I think you've done an outstanding job on trying to put it together. When I can tear through that budget and only find literally just a few questions of what's going on, and when you look back at last year and the year before, and you watch it where we're going and where the county's been going, we want to see things run efficiently. It's just running efficiently to where the string is twanging like a banjo now. Right. It's not strumming. So kudos to you for doing that. But at the same time, I think we're going to have to consider, based upon our discussions in a few minutes with Board of Education, how we're going to handle some upcoming issues with them, as well as how we handle our county employees.
Yes, sir.
On the insurance thing, Derek, and you talked to the Blue Cross people in Raleigh.
Yes.
And they said, we're sorry, but yet they had the most lucrative quarters in history. Yeah. I get confused.
I did, and I do too. They had an interviewer from WLOS interview and just asked what I thought about it. And I mean, you just can't make it up. It's it's a tragedy, really, that this is where it's going. And until, just like I stated in the budget message, until right now, I think everybody in this country is searching for the new normal in terms of health insurance. What is the new normal? Used to, everybody had health insurance. We took it for granted. But now, with the changes and the things that are happening on the national level, we have no choice. As we're only as good as the prices we get back to transition and ebb and flow with these changes until that new normal is found, and we can then have a number to budget consistently with. But with the fluctuations in these costs all across the country, we just have no choice but to try to stay on the bull as best as we can until there's some reconciliation at a national level in terms of health insurance and how those costs are going to be controlled.
Mr. Chairman, and board, as long as we're self-funded, that's always the risk that we're going to have.
Sure.
And we have had two historically bad back-to-back claims years. And we're seeing the effect of that. And there's just no way around it. And if we tried to go and become fully insured, where we simply pay a premium and walk away, we're looking at more money than we're talking about now.
A lot more.
And I know that you all have heard me say this before, but in this budget, you'll notice a $290,000 contribution into the Health Insurance Reserve Fund.
Correct.
And we have increased that contribution year after year in an effort to, again, try to build that Health Insurance Reserve Fund up to a sustainable level. In 2008, that fund had $6 million in it, the reserve fund. So when you have that money in there and you have a blip like this on a claims year, you rely on that fund. But as I stated, and I've talked about insurance in each budget message that I've ever done, and if you go back and look at 14-15, from 2008 through 2014, that Health Insurance Reserve Fund decreased by 94%. We were hitting it on average $850,000 a year for that time period, year after year after year, because our claims were exceeding our claims and expenses associated with that account were exceeding the revenues that we were putting into it. And so immediately after we made these changes, we started when we made the changes and went to our two-tiered plan structure, went with Blue Cross Blue Shield, we were starting with nothing in that reserve fund. So we've started literally at ground zero, but have made a good faith effort and will continue to make a good faith effort to try to build that fund. But in order to do that, we're going to have to catch a break or two and on some claims years to allow us to begin again building that fund back from nothing. And so, I just wanted to highlight that to say that there is about a $290,000 contribution to that Health Insurance Reserve Fund, again, to try to help move that in the right direction, where when we have a year like this, we rely on that reserve fund, get through the year, and move on without having to pass these costs down. But when we get these increases, we no longer have that reserve fund to rely upon. So we have no choice but to absorb the cost in their entirety in the operating budget.
At the 6 months, we're right now 6 months in. If we starting in July, when we get 6 months into the new budget, could you look back and, Mr. Decker, and see if we're going to have another tough year like we're having this year? It's hard to tell, isn't it?
It's hard to tell, but you usually get a sense of it fairly early on. But
it's really hard.
But it could blow up. It could blow up again in the next 4 weeks.
It blowed up at the end of the year this year.
Yeah, it could come further apart in the next 4 weeks.
And like Derek said, we ended last year with like 90-something thousand, I think it was, in that reserve, and we're paying out $5.5 million a year. And so, even if we have a good claims year, we need that money as wood on the porch, as Mike Norris likes to say, to start building that reserve fund back to a level so that when we have bad claims years, we can fall back and use a little bit of that instead of having to pass it on the increases.
Right.
If you have
like Derek said, with this current budget year, we budgeted $261,802. I've already transferred that over, but I'm probably going to need another $500,000 to $600,000 just so that the funds, not broke at
Stay
June 30.
solid.
Pardon?
Stay where you're at and stay solid.
Yeah.
Stay solid.
And so hopefully the $280 we budgeted for next year, we have a good year and we can actually let that roll into that reserve and again start. It's just going to take time, Like Derek said, we started off with basically nothing and we've worked hard to try to get that. But we've been hit with 2 years in a row where we just can't seem to get ahead of the claims. So it's going to take many, many years. To catch up, and when they have to consider, one-time infusions into the fund or something at a later point. There's no easy fix to it. It's not going to happen overnight. So,
And not to mention if with just the regular increases, you don't know what.
Just the normal medical increases. You look at medical trend for procedures and prescriptions, and
that's usually
always there.
7 to 8%
7
a
to
year normally.
8% just medical trend. So.
If you have a good claims year, does that decrease the cost, or does it take 2 or 3 years of good claim years before you'll see the benefit of it?
It'd be a couple of years because they look back at probably a 2 to 3 year history. of what the claims were. So, yeah.
Is the health clinic utilized fairly well?
Health clinic utilization is increasing, and it has been increasing steadily. We expect it, with our new services, for instance. If you have labs, and this is what we tried to get out during our employee meetings, the health department can do 90% of the labs that you need done, unless it's some kind of specialized lab. So by the employee getting the doctor to write those labs and taking those labs to the health department, it's a straight cost. They don't bill the insurance company, so that's not showing up. If we have an employee get cut at work, the health department is now doing sutures and butterfly staples, stuff like that. So rather than going to the emergency room, if it is not, now this is assuming it's you cut your hand or cut your arm, you can get that stitched up at the health clinic, and again, that cost does not get billed to the insurance company. That cost is directly absorbed by the health department. And right now, with those new things like that, we hope as employees start going there or continue going there and becoming more familiar with it, that it's going to have an impact on our health insurance. But we have seen increase in the utilization of the health clinic, and the health department has done an outstanding job in getting that clinic where it is today.
And it's a zero copay.
Zero copay. And for prescription, it's I think it's
$1 to $3 or something, depending on what you get.
Or was it? Did they change it to zero this year? 1 to 3. Okay. So.
But yeah, if you've got a sore throat and think you have strep, you can go to the employee health clinic. They'll test you, and it's zero copay.
Does that go along with the other family members or just employees? Just employees?
Dependents.
Right now, the employees and
Spouses,
dependents.
Children.
Carl, just bring you up to speed. We're discussing the hits on the county employees this year per my email. Without a COLA and the hit on the health insurance. I apologize. No problem. I'll let everybody know your truck needed washed. I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. I know you'll be here So anyway, we're just going through questions. We just wrapped mine up. I think that's all I had besides education questions. So, anyone else? Commissioner Shields, anything for
I
Derek?
think you're going to hit on when you hit the school.
Hit the schools.
Well, we should be on the schools.
Okay. Anything
But
else?
back to the employee thing, Mr. Chairman, I just throw this out for discussion.
Sure.
We're going to be talking when we get to the schools, when we get to mine and Mr. Shields' recommendation to this board. We're going to be talking about some other reoccurring expenses and hitting our fund balance some, and hoping that, with the hope that our sales tax revenue that we have coming in is going to backfill some, but I just wonder how the board would feel about a 1% cost of living to our employees. And then at Christmas, we always give a 1%, Derek?
Yes.
At Christmas, and I know that's not, but that is a 2% increase overall, really and truly. And I know that's not a whole lot, and I know that $200,000 will be coming out of our fund balance, and it is reoccurring. But hopefully that with the sales tax, and hopefully we have a good insurance year, that won't hit our fund balance on reoccurring year after year. With that hope, I just throw that out there for discussion, and that would be and that 1% would be a huge help to those employees making $35,000 a year, Derek. I mean, you can speak to that. You can do the numbers quicker than anybody.
Yes. Lori, did you get I hate to put you on the spot, did you get an updated number on that space needs analysis? Did they ever send you one?
They did send it. I don't remember what it is. It was about 200 maybe.
Okay. See, and I was thinking as we nail down pricing on things like that, I asked Lori about that space needs analysis. We had $300,000 budgeted for that. It's come back at $200,000, so right there at $100,000, just in receiving the pricing information back. We were told it would be anywhere from $150,000 to $300,000. We budgeted on the high end $300,000, just out of uncertainty. So, it could be possible that looking at some stuff like that, if we get some favorable pricing on some other things. I know that we have some pricing coming back for some of our tower projects and things like that. If the pricing comes in lower, we could be able to get together a 1% out of the budget without having to rely on hitting fund balance for that. But that would,
if we had to hit it, the smarter we had to hit it would be the best, of course. But I mean, that would be better than if you hit it for the full amount and expect things you don't know what's going to be coming to backfill it.
Well, and it's half a dozen. If you hit it for the full amount, whatever savings you realize on this pricing, you're going to accrue that through the year, and it's just transferring it
back in year anyway.
So it's half a dozen.
Well, that's just something for discussion.
No, I mean, I wouldn't have brought it up. I didn't think we need to do something. So, Derek, Lori, just rough numbers off the top of my head. At 2% is $450,000 recurring.
About
400. So a 1% would be 200, roughly. So what you're suggesting is that would come out of fund balance.
Well, I'm just saying, unless we can,
There's potentially $100,000 to be held.
Yeah.
if we don't find a way to backfill.
Keep in mind, when you start talking about using capital money that we've got kind of earmarked for CIP, once you put that in operating, it's gone.
That's right.
So that's
We know that.
100,000 less going toward next year's CIP.
We know that.
So just keep that in mind moving forward through all this. And like I said, hopefully with sales tax we'll gain, because we budget conservatively, but we did budget 3% growth this year when we've normally been leaning towards 2.
Paying my fair share.
It's just a volatile source of revenue.
It's looking pretty good.
Looking good, yeah.
It's looking, but everything we saw, the numbers we saw is looking really good.
Oh, yeah, it is.
So that's one reason that we can have these discussions, not only this, but with the school coming up. So
I'm not opposed to a 1% discussion item, but I'm nervous about starting to use our fund balance, which I've advocated for years is in excess $22 million fund balance sitting there. When we start using that to fund these recurring expenses, I don't think it reflects good management skills on this board. That's not the purpose of a fund balance.
agreed.
So it's either
That is our seed form.
Pardon?
That's our seed form.
That's our slush fund is the best word we use for it, but I don't think it reflects good on our management skills. If we want to keep increasing the budget with recurring funds, then the way to handle that's a tax increase. bring in the revenues to offset the expenditures. So that's my take on it.
Carl, comments? Commissioner Shields?
Mr. Higgins mentioned something there. Where's the line in your fund balance? Let's say you spend your fund balance down to a point, then you have to activate a tax increase. Where does that come down to before you say, okay, I don't know.
Anywhere. It's whatever we set it at.
I think the state requires us to have
They doesn't require it. They suggest 8% or
8%.
They will come to your house at 8%.
Yeah.
But when you look at-
They'll come to your house at 8%.
They will come run your county
We're at
government.
we're at 40-something%.
And I think it's important to note here, when you look at smaller counties, less than 40,000 in population, they typically have a higher fund balance because they typically have a smaller budget. 8% of Mecklenburg County's budget, that's going to be a huge number. Whereas, when you look at our budget and you look at the median out here for these other smaller counties, it's typically around 36% in your fund balance is what you see across the state of North Carolina.
So I just heard that we got 48%.
Got about 44.
44. And so we'd have to use a percentage point to spend it down to, then the brakes come on it, right?
We've always, a board many years ago put 25%.
25.
Yeah.
And many years ago.
That's what Davenport suggested too.
Yeah.
And
8% is 1 month's expenses approximately for your county.
I guess
You
I'm
have to
just trying
also
to...
understand that your cost of borrowing money is
Yeah,
going to
be impacted by your fund balance.
That's right.
by how much fund balance you do.
And the use of
and
it.
your what's your credit
If you're
rating?
using it for one-time capital, like if we've got a smaller capital project, instead of going and taking a loan, we take it out of fund balance. You can explain that to the rating agencies, it makes sense to them, that you're using it for a one-time capital purpose and not recurring operating expenses. So you have to be charitable there.
I think our fund balance is rolling about $1 million a year over the last 4 years.
Let me pull that up. I have a slide. Right here.
And I've heard the theory that the reason it does is because we're so conservative, but I take issue with that.
Right here. Let's see here. So 15, 16, 21.8, 16, 17, and that's audited. 22.2, and then 17, 18 projected is 22.4.
But 14, 15, 18, isn't that an audited amount too?
Yeah. Yeah, it grew over $3 million, but I'm thinking 14, 15 had some receivables that were not a normal trend. You got to keep that in mind when you're looking at fund balance.
For example, so what would you be receiving that?
Just maybe grant funds, it might be
Okay.
something that the county had to expend, but by the time revenue recognition is cut off at September 30th. So if there were grant funds that we had drawn down but not received by September 30th, those would be receivables. You can't count those as usable fund balance.
I guess I'm kind of listening from the experience of the group for the bill to go off. It says that's as far as you can go. And then anything below that, you can put in this situation. And I understand recurring stuff can eat up fund balance in a hurry if you get in that
If you
situation.
go back through the recession years, if you'll go back to 2007, 8, 9, 10, everything was going good. Then we had to really dip into it to keep from raising taxes. So it takes a while to build it back up.
Paul, just rolling with your thought there and thinking about what you're saying. You could potentially, we just passed where we're going to finance the improvements to South Macon. So help me out, $3 million, 2.5?
Right at $3 million.
Okay. $3 million. So you could, that's in our budget this year, the payments. It's 160-something thousand in this year's budget. Next year it's going to be 300-something thousand. You could potentially pay that. We've already got the ball rolling on that, so we've already got some expenses into financing it. But you could potentially pay for that out of fund balance, and then that opens that much more up into the budget. So it's sort of a catch-22 when you look at it in that way too. So.
Same
But I
thing.
think it's something this board needs to discuss too. So.
Same thing with the fire building,
Yeah.
Southwestern Community
That's
College.
one I would probably advocate considering use of fund balance because it's such a
1.4.
smaller, it's 1.3 million. I don't see going out for 15 years for 1.3 million to me. It doesn't make sense.
That might be ideal to
That might
pay
be an
out.
ideal
I
use
think
of
you'd
fund
mentioned that
balance.
at a previous meeting too.
So,
What about Macon Middle School? Have we talked about that piece? Have we got the information on that?
It's going to be at least 3 million. I've heard
I'd say
up to 5.
easily.
So I
Yeah,
think
easily.
What was the best interest? We got 3 point.
We got 3-4, didn't we?
Pretty good.
it was a good, decent rate. I don't have it in front of me.
What was that good interest rate? I think I just heard you say that that's based on our good fund balance.
Our good financial position overall. They look at fund balance. They look at your
To look at how
Your
you use
history.
the fund balance.
your
as well.
history of fund balance, how you use it.
So do we get an agreement on the 1%? Let Derek look at that.
I'm okay with that. Are y'all okay?
I think it's
Paul
okay.
said.
Yeah, you just see
So
what you
your
can come up with.
We got a head nod from everybody.
Was that a 1%
There.
COLA, Ronnie? Because you also said something about the appreciation bonus.
Well, I said the Christmas bonus,
Appreciation bonus.
appreciation bonus. I just mentioned that because that does combine. I mean, it would still stay in place.
Yeah.
Because it's in the budget.
I didn't know if you were advocating to increase it.
No.
And the COLA or
No, just leave it in the budget the way it is, and just the 1%, which would be 200,000, right?
And see if there's more and can find that.
Yeah.
That works for me.
Well, it sounds like they're going to get 100,000 from the special needs analysis.
Possibly.
Possibly.
The number was just based on
So-
another county.
Okay.
So we've got to do our own RFP and get it rolling and get our own number back. So
Anyway,
Just one thing.
Y'all let us know.
yes, sir. So we'll know.
Good
I think just going off our dates, Derek, we have our normal scheduled meeting next
ninth.
Tuesday at
Yeah.
6 p.m. and then we're going to have our public hearing the following Tuesday.
Yeah, it'll it will be other business other than budget on the 12th.
You won't be here on the 12th.
Right. No, I won't be here on the 12th.
are we going to have it adopted on the 19th? Hopefully.
Yeah, we'll see how comments we've had. If any stone has been left unturned, we'll keep
That way
hashing
we
it
don't have
out.
to come back the next Tuesday and have a month full of Tuesday meetings.
It is an election coming. That'll be.
All right. Any further questions? Commissioner Shields?
Thank you, sir.
Bill?
I have none. Till we get to the schools.
No.
I guess.
Well, I'm sorry for the, apologize, I'm sorry for the confusion with this. We discussed a meeting at 5, and that's kind of what we'd reported, and then I think there was some memos or some emails sent out. Then we might try and move this forward with the Board of Education. Because we thought we might move through our portion quicker than expected, which we did. The problem with that is that I've heard that not every member of the Board of Education can be here because of work and lack of notice, and we can't blame them for that because we didn't give y'all any notice, really. So I'm happy to, we're happy to wait, would be my suggestion. Dr. Baldwin, any thoughts? Again, I'm suggesting to wait, but if y'all
It's up to you, Dr.
think
Bob.
so.
You just have 3 members, I see.
We have some other stuff that this board needs to discuss, but we'll probably have to go into closed session regarding property acquisition, but
Chairman, if I can answer your question.
sure. Yes, sir.
I think
Yes,
there were
sir.
a lot of interested people in terms of our discussion that were planning on being here at 5.
Okay.
And also, in addition, we did have 2 board members I know that were in the impression to be at 5.
I understand.
So,
Yeah,
if you're
yeah,
asking
definitely
what our
not.
preference would be to wait until that time frame.
Okay, definitely not trying to push y'all. So,
Okay.
Did y'all actually recess a meeting or whatnot till 5 o'clock today as well?
No, we had just, back when we had a prior meeting, we met with our liaisons, and that prior meeting, I thought it was understood that I thought when we talked to the boards, we'd agreed to allow our members time to get here at 5 o'clock was a better
I
time
think
for
y'all
that
better wait
discussion.
till 5.
Oh, yeah, that'd be fine.
Yeah.
We did what it.
I think that was the understanding.
That was instant, correct.
all right. Well, I'm just going to suggest then that we go into closed session and discuss property acquisition. Chester,
Motion to go into closed session, sir.
unless there's something else that needs to be discussed. Got a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
We'll be right back.
Say, Rock. I need you to lower your Come ahead. Doing great.